Good afternoon and welcome to the IDM, the Institute for the Danube Region in Central Europe. My name is Sebastian Schäffer. I'm the director, and I have the pleasure to open vernissage that is very special in many ways. Thank you very much for all of you being here in the room, but also joining us online in the webinar and in the YouTube live stream. Back in 2020, when we were talking about expanding this seminar room, because it used to be much smaller than the place we're in here now, we wanted to be more flexible when we are hosting events. And when it was finished, I loved the wide space that was in there, the white walls. And instead of putting the bookshelves back in, we decided that this could be a good space to use for exhibitions. At that time, our late chairman, Busek, told me, don't underestimate how hard it is to manage exhibitions. He was right and wrong at the same time, actually, because I think we've been doing okay so far with our exhibitions. But when we set them up, here, this one is actually the fourth one that we are having. And this is definitely not easy to say a few opening words this time, because on the one hand, I feel particularly honored that also the family of Roman Chornomaz is joining us, the man behind these photographs we're about to see. Your presence gives this moment a profound meaning, and welcome that you're here. We are here for the vernissage of the Optics of Battle documentary photography by Roman Chornomaz, and in collaboration with the Institute for Documentation and Exchange, or INDEX for short, which happened under the curatorship of Kateryna Mikhalitsyna. And I first encountered Roman's photographs during a visit to Lviv earlier this year, when I met with Sasha, and she showed me examples of the important work that INDEX is doing, and among them these images, powerful, unvarnished, urgent, and they capture not only scenes of war and conflict, but moments of resilience, of humanity, of individual lives touched by history. Those pictures, they stayed with me, and I felt an obligation that these testimonies must be shared beyond Ukraine and to reach audiences who otherwise might never see them. And I hope we could bring it to Vienna. And today we fulfill that hope. And this exhibition is more than a display of photographs. It's a commemoration of a life that took many forms. Journalist, activist, volunteer, soldier, Roman was all of these. His journey from documenting public struggles, protests, and the 2014 events on Institutska Street to joining the army in 2022 after Russia's full-scale invasion shows a profound commitment to bearing witness, even with his own life. The photographs we'll see are not just images, they are testimonies. They challenge us to look, to see what is often hidden, what is silenced. And in today's Ukraine, artistic voices, journalistic voices, documentary voices are under threat. Many are silenced by war, by violence, by displacement. And in bringing these photos to Vienna today, we assert that such voices must not be lost. Their vision, their memory, their truth matter, especially now. And in this spirit, we present the Optics of Battle. We remember Roman, not only as a casualty of war, but as a chronicler of it. Someone who refused to turn away, someone who believed that through the lens, whether camera or rifle, one can defend truth, dignity, humanity, and our freedom. With that, I'm honored to hand over to Sasha, head of INDEX, who will speak to you about Roman's work, a curatorial vision behind the exhibition, and what it means for us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you all for being here, and thank you so much to Sebastian Schäffer and to Sophia Beta and to the entire team and staff of the Institute for inviting me to speak to you about Roman Chornomaz, about Ukraine's struggle today, and to have a possibility to exhibit these works in this office, because I think it's profoundly meaningful that people who will come here for future talks and future events will be surrounded by these reminders that there is a bloody war ongoing on the European continent, very close to us, really, in Vienna. And there are people who have paid the highest price to defend our right to be in places like this and continue our discussions and conversations as free people in free Europe. So this exhibition, The Optics of Battle, was the first one which we held at Index last year in February 2025. And it was curated by Kateryna Mikhalitsyna, a fantastic Ukrainian poet and volunteer who has been actively engaged in the support of the Ukrainian armed forces. She wrote an essay about Roman Chornomaz, interviewing many people whom he knew, whom he touched with his life and with his art, for the project which was called People of Culture Taken Away by the War. I curated it for Ukrainian Pen, and we published these essays, which combines reportage and impressions and memoir, and also elements of biography. It was a literary gallery of portraits of those people who have been taken away from us by the war since the full-scale invasion. It is as if these are threads that make up the canvas of Ukrainian culture, and we see that Russia is trying to pull these threads one by one. And our job at this particular time is to make sure that the canvas is put in place and that we hold this canvas with our hands and with all our efforts. So this is the purpose behind the project of literary portraits, but it is also the purpose behind our work at Index, where we hold these commemorative exhibitions, which started with a display of works by Roman Chornomaz. It is, I think, very fitting that we are here and we look at these photographs in December. December is a highly charged month in Ukraine. It was 34 years ago, on the 1st of December, that the people of Ukraine voted themselves out of the Soviet Union. They voted their country into existence by going to referendum. And 92% voted for Ukrainian independence. A week later, the Soviet Union collapsed. And 12 years ago, on the 1st of December, again, Ukrainians had to defend their independence. You might remember the word Euromaidan, or as it became known, the Revolution of Dignity. So at the end of February 2013, a couple of hundred protesters gathered in the main square of Kyiv called Maidan Nezalezhnosti, hence the name of the revolution, Maidan. And they protested against the decision of our then president, Viktor Yanukovych, to disalign with the European Union. He did not sign the decree for the European Association Alliance. And yeah, the people just did not take it, and they peacefully demonstrated for about a week in the center of our capital. And then our president took the decision to apply force, and the protest was very brutally dispersed. And these images were showcased on our TVs, and it was an unprecedented image of violence, of police brutality in independent Ukraine. I honestly thought that the next day it would be like my close cohort of friends who would go out to protest against the police brutality. But when I arrived in the center of Kiev, there was 1 million of Ukrainian citizens who also took to the streets. And this mass of people who said that police violence and police brutality had no place in their country was an incredible show of strength and belief in freedom, which I think ignited the whole generation. And by generation, I don't mean like an age group. I mean a whole group of citizens united by one meaningful event in their country's history. And Roman Chornomaz was one of those. So here on this wall, we start the display with his portrait, and then we see images of the Ukrainian Revolution of Dignity. And here he shows, the peaceful demonstration and also some of the details that are meaningful to us. For example, here we see the hard hat, the orange hard hat, which we then thought would protect us from police brutality. But of course, it was no protection against the bullets that were eventually used against the protesters. And here we can see the wooden shields that the protesters were holding. And again, it could protect you from a police baton, not necessarily, but it was some kind of protection. But it would never protect against the sniper's bullet. Roman Chornomaz was among those who was on the streets for the entirety of 3 months. And as you might remember, at the end of February 2014, our then government decided to disperse the protest with bullets. And demonstrators were climbing up the Instaduska street in the center of Kyiv, as Sebastian has reminded us. And Roman Chornomaz was among them. He risked his life so that this document of Ukrainian resistance survives. He made some of the pictures that were later used as evidence in court in order to identify the perpetrators of this crime. I think that this reminder of what it takes for people to defend their freedom is very apt. And every time I look at these photographs, I'm reminded of this, of the very crucial choice that defined the destiny of an entire generation of Ukrainians. And of course, it was also a very valuable experience for all of us, because we learned that if we persevere long enough against the odds, we can, in the end, achieve victory. Because our then President Viktor Yanukovych was eventually ousted out of the country. He fled to Russia. And for us, it was a great show that if we do not bend, if we just persevere and we fight hard enough, in the end, what awaits us is some kind of justice and some kind of victory. Roman knew it as well. During the decades that separated this event from the full-scale invasion, he had some struggles with his health. He was not a healthy man. He had disabilities, which did not prevent him to join his country's defense in 2022. Well, what you see here was not only an experience of, solidarity and just fight for Ukrainians. It was also an experience of an existential threat for Russia, because the Revolution of Dignity showed that if people unite, they can actually win over an authoritarian regime. And it was an example that Russia could not tolerate in the region. You know very well what followed after the Revolution of Dignity. Russia invaded Ukraine in Crimea and in the eastern regions of Donetsk and Luhansk. And the fight continued for 8 years. As I said, Roman made his choice, and here I will probably quote from Kateryna Mikhalitsyna, because I think she aptly describes the decision that he made and characterizes him as a person. So he calls him a man who is very well described as observant, someone who knows how to see, who spares no time and energy for contemplation, who puts all of himself into the process. It is not surprising, therefore, that the lens of a means of observing the world has become an integral part of Roman's life. For many years, it was a camera lens, documenting streets, conferences, festivals, travels with friends, movement, the flickering of people's eyes, events, landscapes. And finally, it became the sniper rifle lens, because that was his conscious choice. That is the logic of being in all of its terrible symbolism. I am where I have to be, doing what I know best, looking through the scope. Thanks to Roman's ability to see, we can see too, images that reflect the continuity of our resistance and struggle. And over there behind your backs, you can see just 3 images from the front where Roman served. He was first enlisted in the army as an ordinary rifleman, but he trained himself into becoming a sniper. And these are just 3 scenes of his daily life. The region where he fought is the Zaporizhia region, where I also come from. So I can fool myself into saying, oh yes, I can recognize this particular shade of grass, this particular line of the horizon. For me, it seems familiar, but maybe not. He didn't photograph that much while he was serving in the army. Obviously, his hands were full with other tasks. And in June 2023, he was killed defending his country. What I also want to say is that Roman Chornomaz is one of 248 people of culture killed by Russia since the beginning of the full-scale invasion only. This is the figure from the monitoring of cultural losses that Index conducts together with PAN Ukraine and 6 other institutions. And behind this number is 248 verified biographies of artists, photographers, writers, theater makers, film directors, musicians, people pretty much like us, who have been erased since February 2022 because of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Some of these people are civilians, like, for example, the writer and who turned into a war crimes investigator, Victoria Melina, and we will be discussing her extraordinary book of testimony, looking at women, looking at war, a War and Justice Diary, tomorrow with Sebastian and Yuri Durkov. So please, if you are free, join us. So some of these people are civilians. Victoria was killed when she took her fellow writers from Colombia to Kramatorsk on an advocacy mission. And the restaurant where they were having dinner was hit with an Iskander targeted missile attack. But the majority of these people who composed this number were killed holding weapons. What it means is that Ukrainian army is composed of yesterday's civilians, people pretty much like us who just refuse to be subjugated, who refuse to be dominated by a neighbor who seeks their erasure. They joined the army and paid a very high price for preserving their identity, their people, and their country. I think that what motivates them is this knowledge that if you do whatever you must, then in the end, what awaits you is victory. And I want to quote Roman Chornomaz so that we end with his words. He wrote this in his Facebook post on the 14th of September in 2022. If you do something, you have to give it your all, and then everything works out as it should. So I believe that it is our responsibility not to betray his trust, that we will dedicate our all and do whatever we can so that there is a just peace and victory in Ukraine. Thank you so much for being here, and I hope that these photographs will remain with you as a memory and as a token. Thank you. Yeah.
Okay, I think this was the vernissage part. I think we keep it quite informal. We have the possibility to look at the pictures, learn a little bit more about it maybe, and yeah, then afterwards, I hope that you join us for our IDM conference, where we will continue to talk about definitely topics like just these. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Take a little walk and look at the rings that we have here.